Hello, I want to talk to you today about the city of Bath and some issues that they're having with transportation. I was on the transportation committee for a little over a year. I haven't been on it for the last 6 months, but I've been following along because I'm very interested in this. You can see in my previous videos, I've done some talks on ideal cities, and I'm still gonna. So what I want to do here is I want to apply some of the concepts I've been talking about to a real life situation. And so just to give you some context, the city of Bath is interesting in that, well, it's a city of about 10,000 people. The main route that comes through, there's a freeway that comes through. Within the last decade, they made a redesign so that, one issue that a lot of cities in Maine have, especially at this time of the year where there's heavy tourism, is there are a lot of people coming from the north and past Brunswick. Well, you could go up on the main interstate freeway to past Brunswick. It veers off away from where we are. This is called the Mid-Coast region. And an issue that a lot of Mid-Coast cities have, Brunswick is one place where there's issues, but also as you go further, Bath actually kind of solved this issue. And the issue is, if there's no throughway through the city for people who are just passing up and going further north, then you're going to have big problems. So Bath made an overpass where you don't have to stop at all in order to keep going further north or to go south. You don't have to stop in the city, where a lot of other cities you have to go through the middle of the city and you have to stop. And sometimes it's like the main commercial road is also the road that you got to go through to go further on your way and through the town. So it becomes a very problematic. And this is just my opinion, but if you can separate these two activities, I think the towns would benefit greatly. And but despite this, Bath has issues because, well, the largest manufacturer in the state of Maine, which is Bath Iron Works, is here in Bath. And basically just south of where that major freeway is, along the water, this is where BIW exists. And as such a big employer, you have masses of traffic that are coming through, and there's this whole transportation committee that I was actually there from the start of the committee. It was created to deal mostly with these issues that they were having with parking in the south end of town. Got to plug in here. Okay, so and today I came across the headline in the Forecaster, which is one of the local papers, and apparently the committee recommended some changes. Well, the major change they were talking about here was actually about, there are two roads that are very narrow roads, and there's houses very close to the roads where big trucks, but also everybody else that's coming to BIW, they are coming down this road and usually going over the speed limit. So the speed was an issue, but also the big trucks were an issue. Noise, pollution, and just causing the roads were always having to be repaired very frequently. But there's not really a good other option for them at the moment. So I guess they proposed some traffic changes. The city administrators, including Peter Owen, let's see exactly what the plans were. Okay, so we're looking at, they're basically doing a couple of one-ways, or they proposed a few one-ways, and they're trying to restrict large trucks on certain roads. And so this was shot down. People were not really into this idea. And I would have to look a little bit more into exactly what they're trying to do. But, one of the ideas is each of those roads is a little bit different size. And think about the possibilities. Okay, so you can have two-way, you could have one-way with parking on one side, or if it's a little bit bigger road, you can potentially have parking on either side and one lane either way, or you can have just two lanes and no parking on that street, or you can have one lane with double parking on either side. Okay, so there's several different options that you have. And the question is, how can you configure the streets to be most efficient? Is there a way even to calculate that? And there's probably I don't think there's an industry standard on how to do that. But I want to play with the principles that I was talking about previously. And what would this look like for the city of Bath? So I have here a map of the city of Bath. And I think the first thing we got to look at the frame where we can see Bath, we can see Woolwich, and we can see like Cook's Corner down below. And let's just recognize for a moment, okay, Route 1 here, this is your major freeway. And I really think that through Bath, it's pretty well designed. I don't have a problem with that. But one thing we talk about is bikeability and walkability. And wouldn't it be great if there were an easy way? And I would say that the path that you can get to Woolwich by through over the bridge is pretty good. That's pretty good too. But we don't have a really great option to bike to Cook's Corner. And what we're looking at is State Road or Bath Road here. And man, wouldn't it be nice if there were this is just a road that there's fast moving vehicular traffic through here. And this would be a significant investment here. But in the long run, man, wouldn't it be nice to have that be an option that you can walk or bike nice and safe to Cook's Corner from Bath. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, man, let's try to make that happen. The alternative is I see that there is off of State Road and Berry Mill Road, there is a telephone or a power line. And it goes all the way. Well, then it goes along train tracks, which this is another place where I think you could have bike or pedestrian roadway here. And this would just be a very nice feature connecting both towns and making that an option. The other thing you got to think about is transportation. And honestly, I don't know if a bus would ever really be feasible, but I think what is feasible, and there's a service that exists right now and it's pretty good, is the taxi service. You can get a really affordable taxi from Brunswick to Bath. So I think if anything, you just support those businesses and whatever you need to do as far as like, I don't know, however the city can support them, but I think that's a really good option that exists already. So maybe you subsidize them a little bit, give them some support. But okay, now I want to look within the city of Bath. And again, my priority is walkability and bikeability. We have to have a nice X shape if possible, or at least two bike and pedestrian paths that are very clear, very safe, plenty of space for them, and minimal interactions with vehicular traffic. And so you have going north to south, you have three roads that can be an option. You have Washington Street, you have Middle Street, and you have 209 High Street. They run all the way through the city. And what this would look like is, from a minimalist standpoint, you just have nice clear shoulders for the people who are walking, with maybe just make it a sidewalk all the way through, and if there is a thing where you got to press the button to cross, set those things up so that if a person presses that button and there's really nobody coming, it immediately turns to get that person across the road. So that's like the high priority. And then for the bikes, we'll just make sure that you have the symbol painted on the road, and the rule is that the bikes always have the right of way, so that's made just very clear. And you just do that on one of those three streets. And then you'd probably also want to do it on either North Street, Lincoln Street, Center Street. And then if you can do something in the South End, that would be really good. And again, I see power lines over here that are okay. So power lines, look at all the acreage that is in power lines. And these are already places that have to be cut on a regular basis. And so that's basically my biking talk. Now let's talk parking in the South End. And then there are a few lots that maybe there's a reason for why they are not being used, but I think we should try to use them. And one of them is where the power lines are. I mean, I've seen in other situations where there is parking underneath high voltage power lines. I mean, right? Am I mistaken on this? I don't know, but this is a possibility that I think should be looked at. And if nothing else, shave a little bit more off around those areas and make that into parking. It's just a space wouldn't take that much of an investment, and you would add hundreds of spaces down in the South End. Okay, well, last element is the inner city throughway. It's going to be really nice if we can have a ring around the city, essentially, where if you're trying to get from one end of the city to the other, you can hop on this road and you're going to ride, maybe not really fast, but smooth through the whole city. And Bath, on the north end, it has North Street to Congress Avenue that is really nice. And then as you go over Route 1, and then you come to State Road, and look at this, there's a roundabout right here. And this is, just using that, it really works well. It really works well, Congress and State Road. But then you get to, so that's a nice throughway. Unfortunately, though, they're going to run into issues when the high school is going to be moving off of Congress Avenue onto Anchor Road. And this is going to present some problems where this road would not really, you couldn't use it that much as a throughway when you know you're going to have a lot of traffic coming off onto into that little subdivision there where the high school will be. So that's a little tough. Ideally, you wouldn't want those two activities happening on the same road. Yeah, you would want, if possible, for there to be at least another, because there's only two ways to get to that high school, and they're right on that throughway. Ideally, you would want to disperse or have multiple points of access to this, whatever it is, if it's a school or a event center, any place that's going to have not necessarily constant flows of traffic, but like bursts of high volume. So, right when school gets out and when it starts. The same issue you have with BIW, and that's the whole thing with the South End. Like, there's really not a possibility to have this nice throughway kind of around the outside of the most dense areas of the town. In a dream fantasy world, what you would do is actually you would just make a new street, and it would happen around where the Hyde Park is. I mean, another way to use this power line is, just shave a little off of one side and then just make a nice 4-lane road, 2 ways in each direction, so that this traffic, if you're coming from the south, then you can hop off at the New Meadows Road exit, come up New Meadows Road, turn onto State Road, and then you're popping onto this new road right behind the Hyde School. And then if you're coming, so then it's like you have people from the south coming in through there. You have people from the north coming in like from the opposite direction. And also like away from this little residential area. There's like a triangular shaped residential area that is just really, the whole South End, all those houses around there are just, unless you go south of Pine Street maybe, but they're just kind of inundated with, there's these periods of time where it's just like chaos down there. And the parking situation is just really difficult. And the people at BIW too, it's like they have to scramble around. And BIW has to administer a system of, some people have like a specific spot, but it's not really universal. So, but it just really comes down to there's not enough parking spaces down there. And then then the other issue is you have the commercial areas more on the north part on the waterfront. So you certainly, you want to have those areas available for parking for people who are popping in and trying to engage in commercial activities down there. So there's some overlap. Oh, and I have to mention this part as well. So one of the main elements here that I think is really important in regard to the commercial area is, and I wouldn't know how to work all of the details out of this. I'm just saying that ideally, for Center Street, basically an L shape. You start at Water Street, okay, and you're on Center Street. You go up Center Street, and then you go take a left on Front Street all the way down to Elm Street. So that Front Street to Center Street, L shape, you cut no more traffic on that road. Traffic is cut off on that little strip of area. And you would have to replace 60 or so parking spaces. You would have to reconfigure all of the roads around there, some turning into one-ways. And you can maybe have some parking onto Center Street and Front Street, from Broad and from Arch. But what you would have is a nice, where that road is now, right in the middle of there is just like a walkway. It's just a walkway with benches, and it's like a plaza. So this would become a plaza. And I think if you had this element in your town, I mean, it would really set Bath apart from other towns. And alternatively, you can do this with Commercial Street. So you just shut Commercial Street off from vehicular traffic. And yeah, you would have to make a lot of reconfigurations. This would be a huge change. But I think in the long term, this would be really beneficial for commerce in the downtown. So let's see if I'm missing anything. Well, as far as the transportation goes, I think that's what those are the priorities. And other than that, well, the forestry aspect of it is kind of a side topic, but apparently, now I'm looking at this map. Okay, so the statistic is that the city of Bath has 28% tree cover, and the goal is to get to 40%. And as I'm looking at this map, it looks like it's more than that. It looks like there's a lot of trees, but I don't know, apparently not. But that's an element of this. I'll talk about that in another video. But another subtopic is solar. So we're looking at these buildings downtown. And yeah, downtown, there's very much a urban core here. But I think if you're a solar person, you're looking at these roofs and you're thinking to yourself, man, there's a lot of potential there. And I'm looking at Shaw's right now, and this is this kind of retail building, really long, 1 or 2 story buildings. And I don't know much about solar. I'm hoping to have my neighbor on soon, and neighbors, actually, they're both in the solar industry, and learn more about that because I'm very interested. But it seems to me that this kind of building is like perfect for solar panels on the top. And the one lesson that they were talking about was how important it is that it's like where you put the solar panel, that's where you should be using the energy. So, because it's very difficult to transport that energy. It's basically not worth it. So like a big solar farm out in the middle of the desert, you can produce a lot of power there, but to transport it it makes it really not worth it. So you have to consume the power where you're getting the power from, I guess is the lesson. So that can also be not related to transportation, but if we're just looking at, I guess, more a broad plan of priorities to make this city of Bath as green as possible, that would be also a really interesting thing to look at. Thanks for, that's it. That sums it up. So thanks for watching, and leave me a comment, please. What do you think? What's your opinion? And more on these subtopics soon.